She was the cleaning woman, paid $15 an hour to mop floors and stay invisible. But the baby was dying, and she couldn't look away. 27 nannies had failed, $2.3 million spent. Every specialist in the world consulted. Nothing worked. Oliver kept getting smaller, kept slipping away, and the doctors had given him 2 weeks to live. Molly's hands shook as she crossed the threshold. She knew what would happen if she got caught. Mrs. Morgan had been crystal clear. You do not touch that baby. Do you understand? But Oliver made a sound then. The same sound her daughter Ava had made 2 months ago, right before Molly lost her forever. She picked him up, pressed him against her bare chest, started singing the lullaby she'd sung to Ava. And then she cried, her tears falling on Oliver's face as she whispered, I already lost my baby. Please don't make me lose you too. She reached for the bottle. 27 professionals had tried and failed. Molly had no credentials, no training, no right to be here. But she touched the nipple to his lips and begged, Please, mi amor. Just try. Oliver's eyes locked on hers. His mouth opened. He drank. 1 ounce, 2, 4, 6. The entire bottle while Molly stared in disbelief. She didn't hear the footsteps, didn't hear the door open, didn't hear anything until a voice exploded through the silence. What did you do to my son? Molly's head snapped up. Billionaire Jonathan Reed stood in the doorway, his face twisted with rage and terror, and the empty bottle in her hand was about to cost her everything. Dear viewers, this is a story about a woman who had every reason to stay away, a baby everyone had given up on, and the moment when breaking every rule became the only way to save a life. Subscribe now and hit that like button and comment where in the world you are watching from, because what happens next will show you that sometimes the most powerful medicine isn't what money can buy, but what a broken heart is brave enough to give. The mansion was silent at 2 in the morning. That's what Molly noticed first when she started working the night shift 3 weeks ago. A house this big, this expensive, this full of people, and it felt like a tomb. Cold marble floors, crystal chandeliers that caught moonlight and threw shadows, rooms so perfectly arranged they looked like nobody actually lived in them. Molly pushed her cleaning cart down the 3rd-floor hallway, her worn sneakers quiet on the polished floor. She'd taken this job specifically for the night shift, specifically to avoid people, specifically to fill the empty hours when she couldn't bear to be in her apartment alone with Ava's empty crib. She was supposed to mop the hallway, wipe down the banisters, and clean the kitchen after evening service. That's what Mrs. Morgan paid her $15 an hour to do. You're here to clean, the head of household had said during the interview, her voice sharp and cold. 3rd-floor hallways, kitchen, nothing else. You do not enter the family quarters. You do not speak to Mr. Reed if you see him. And you absolutely, under no circumstances, go near the nursery. We have professional staff for childcare. Do you understand? Molly had understood perfectly. She needed the job, needed every dollar to pay the hospital bills from Ava's death. The funeral costs she was still paying off monthly. The rent on the apartment she couldn't afford to leave because it was the last place Ava had lived. But tonight, something was different. As Molly mopped near the nursery door, she heard it, crying. Not the normal crying of a fussy baby. This was different, desperate, the kind of crying that said something was very wrong. She tried to ignore it, kept mopping the same spot over and over, her hands gripping the mop handle so tight her knuckles went white. It wasn't her business, not her baby, not her problem. She had rules to follow and bills to pay, and a heart that was barely holding together as it was. But the crying didn't stop. It got worse, more desperate, and then it changed into something that made Molly's blood run cold. That sound, that specific sound of a baby who'd stopped fighting, who'd given up, the same sound Ava had made. Molly dropped the mop. It clattered against the marble, water spreading across the floor, but she didn't notice. Her feet moved on their own, carrying her to the nursery door. She pushed it open slowly, her heart hammering. The room was dark except for the soft glow of medical monitors, expensive furniture, designer wallpaper, a chandelier that probably cost more than Molly made in a year. And in the center of it all, a crib where Oliver Reed lay struggling to breathe. His lips were blue, not pale, not pink tinged with blue, deep, dusky blue that meant his body was shutting down. His tiny chest rose and fell in shallow gasps. His eyes were closed, his face contorted in an expression no baby should have, resignation. Where was the night nanny? Where were all the specialists Mr. Reed supposedly had on call? Where was anyone? Molly's hands started shaking. She gripped the doorframe to stay upright. Every instinct screamed at her to leave, to get Mrs. Morgan, to follow protocol, to not get involved because getting involved meant caring, and caring meant pain, and she'd already survived more pain than any person should have to bear. But then Oliver made that sound again, that giving up sound, and Molly's feet moved before her brain could stop them. She crossed to the crib. I looked down at him, and something inside her chest cracked wide open. This baby was dying. Not slowly, not eventually, right now, and nobody was here to stop it. Molly reached down and lifted him out. He was so light it shocked her. 6 months old, and he felt like he weighed nothing. She could feel his ribs through his onesie, could count every bone in his tiny back. "Oh, sweetheart," she whispered, and her voice broke. "What have they let happen to you?" She didn't plan what happened next, just moved on instinct, on muscle memory she'd been trying to forget for 2 months. She sat in the rocking chair beside the crib and opened the buttons on her uniform, pressed Oliver against her bare chest, skin to skin, the way the hospital had told her to do with Ava when nothing else worked. Oliver went completely still. For a terrible second, Molly thought she'd done something wrong, thought maybe he'd stopped breathing entirely. But then she felt it, the change in his body, the slight turn of his head toward the sound of her heartbeat, the way his tiny hand unclenched, fingers spreading like he was reaching for something. He was listening to her live, listening to proof that someone real was holding him. Molly started humming without thinking, the Spanish lullaby her mother had taught her, the one she'd sung to Ava every single night. Duerme, duerme, negrito. Her voice cracked halfway through the first line. And then she was crying, really crying for the first time since Ava's funeral. Tears streaming down her face, her body shaking. With 2 months of grief, she'd been holding back like water behind a dam. "I'm sorry," she sobbed quietly. "I'm so sorry, Ava. I should have checked on you more. I should have known something was wrong. I did everything right and you still died, and I don't understand why." Oliver's eyes opened, wide and dark and fixed on her face, with an intensity that shouldn't be possible for a baby. He was looking at her, really looking, like he recognized something, like he understood, like he knew exactly what it felt like to lose everything. The bottle sat on the side table, prepared and waiting, probably by whichever nanny was supposed to be watching him, but had fallen asleep or stepped out or given up. Molly had heard the whispers from other staff, 27 nannies in 4 months, all of them professionals with credentials and experience. All of them failed to get Oliver to eat more than a few sips before he'd scream and refuse. Molly wasn't supposed to even touch him, but she'd already crossed that line, already broken the biggest rule. What was one more? She reached for the bottle with a trembling hand, positioned it the way she remembered, the way her body remembered even though her mind wanted to forget. Oliver watched her the entire time, didn't look away, didn't close his eyes, just kept staring like he was trying to decide something. "Please," Molly whispered. She didn't even know who she was talking to anymore. Oliver. God. Ava. The universe that had already taken so much. "Please, mi amor. Just one sip. Just try for me. I can't watch another baby die. I already lost her. I can't lose you too." She touched the nipple to his lips, held her breath. The monitors beeped their steady rhythm. Somewhere in the house, a clock chimed twice. Oliver's eyes stayed locked on hers, and then, so slowly Molly thought she might be imagining it, his mouth opened. The nipple slipped between his lips. He sucked once, tentatively, then again, then again. Molly's free hand flew to her mouth, trying to hold back a sob. She watched in complete disbelief as Oliver began to drink. Really drink. His small throat working with each swallow, his eyes never leaving her face. 1 ounce, 2 ounces, 3. "Oh my God," Molly breathed. "You're eating. You're actually eating." 4 ounces. 5. His eyes were starting to droop now, but he kept drinking. "Keep trusting." 6 ounces. The entire bottle was gone, while Molly stared at the empty container like it was something from another world. Oliver's eyes closed. His body relaxed completely against her chest. His breathing deepened, steadied, became the normal rhythm of a sleeping baby instead of the shallow gasps of someone dying. Molly held him close, tears still streaming down her face, her mind unable to process what had just happened. 27 professionals had failed. But somehow, she succeeded. A cleaning woman with no credentials, no training, no business being in this room at all. She was so focused on Oliver, so lost in watching him breathe, that she didn't hear the footsteps in the hallway, didn't hear the door opening, didn't hear anything at all until a voice cut through the silence like a knife. "What are you doing with my son?" Molly's head snapped up, terror flooding her veins. Jonathan Reed stood in the doorway, and he looked nothing like his magazine photos. His hair was disheveled, his eyes bloodshot and wild. His shirt was half untucked, wrinkled like he'd been wearing it for days. But it was his face that made Molly's stomach drop. Pure rage mixed with something that looked like fear. "I asked you a question." His voice was low, dangerous, shaking with barely controlled emotion. "Who are you? Where's the nanny? Why are you holding my son?" Molly's mouth opened, but no sound came out. Her arms instinctively tightened around Oliver, who was sleeping peacefully against her chest. She knew what this looked like. The cleaning woman, unauthorized, holding the billionaire's dying baby in the middle of the night. "Sir, I'm sorry," she managed to whisper. "I heard him crying and his lips were blue and You just what?" Jonathan took a step into the room, his hands clenched into fists. "Decided to break every rule you were given? Decided to touch my son without permission? Do you have any idea what you've done?" Before Molly could answer, his eyes dropped to the empty bottle on the side table, to Oliver's peaceful face, to the steady rise and fall of breathing that looked nothing like the labored gasps he'd been making for months. Jonathan froze. The color drained completely from his face. Is that bottle empty?" Molly nodded, not trusting her voice. "How much did he drink?" 6 ounces. The whole thing. The sound Jonathan made wasn't quite a laugh and wasn't quite a sob. He staggered backward, catching himself on the doorframe. His hand came up to cover his mouth, his eyes filled with tears. "That's not possible. The most anyone's gotten him to take in 4 months is half an ounce." And he threw that up. Heavy footsteps echoed in the hallway. Mrs. Morgan appeared behind Jonathan, her gray hair perfectly arranged despite the hour. Her face went rigid when she saw Molly. "Mr. Reed, what is going on? Why is the cleaning woman in the nursery?" Her voice was ice. She was explicitly told never to enter this room. She has no authorization to touch. "Call Dr. Wells," Jonathan interrupted, his eyes never leaving Oliver. "Tell her to get here immediately." "Sir, it's 2 in the morning." "I don't care," Jonathan's voice cracked. "My son just drank 6 ounces. 6 ounces, Mrs. Morgan." Dr. Wells said if we could get him to take even 2 ounces consistently, we might have a chance, so call her now. Mrs. Morgan's expression shifted from fury to shock. She looked at the empty bottle, at Oliver sleeping peacefully, at Molly holding him. Her mouth opened and closed. She knew what 6 ounces meant. Everyone in this house knew. It meant the impossible had just happened. "Yes, sir," she said finally, shooting Molly a look of pure venom before disappearing down the hallway, phone already in hand. The silence that followed felt heavy. Jonathan moved slowly into the room, each step careful, like he was approaching something fragile that might shatter. He came to stand beside the rocking chair, staring down at his son with an expression Molly had never seen on anyone's face before. Wonder, grief, fear, hope, all twisted together. "What's your name?" he asked quietly. "Molly Sanders, sir." "How long have you worked here?" "Molly? 3 weeks. Have you ever been in this nursery before tonight?" "No, sir. Mrs. Morgan was very clear that I wasn't supposed to, but you came in anyway." It wasn't quite an accusation, more like confusion. "Why?" Molly swallowed hard. The truth felt too raw, too personal to share with this stranger. But something in Jonathan's exhausted face made her answer honestly. "Because he sounded like my daughter did," she said quietly. "Right before I lost her." Jonathan went very still. "You have a daughter?" "I had a daughter, Ava. She died 2 months ago." Molly's voice stayed steady, but only because she'd learned how to say these words without falling apart. "She was 3 months old. SIDS. The doctor said I did everything right, that sometimes babies just stop breathing and nobody knows why." Jonathan sank slowly into the chair beside hers. When he spoke, his voice was barely above a whisper. "My wife died the day Oliver was born, hemorrhage during delivery. They did everything they could, but sometimes people just die and nobody can stop it." He looked at Oliver sleeping peacefully in Molly's arms. "I've spent 4 months trying to save him. $2.3 million, the best specialists in the world, and nothing worked. Every week he gets smaller. Every week the doctors look more worried. Every week I watch my son slip further away." His voice broke. "They told me 3 days ago that if he doesn't start eating, we have maybe 2 weeks before his organs begin to fail. 2 weeks before I have to decide whether to let him go or keep him alive on machines." Molly felt tears sliding down her face again. "I'm sorry, but you did something in 15 minutes that nobody could do in 4 months." Jonathan looked at her with desperate intensity. "So I'm asking you, what did you do differently?" Before Molly could answer, rapid footsteps sounded in the hallway. Dr. Hannah Wells burst into the room, still in pajamas with a coat thrown over them, her medical bag in hand. Her eyes went straight to Oliver. "Jonathan, your message said—" She stopped mid-sentence, staring at the sleeping baby. At the empty bottle. "Did he eat?" 6 ounces, Jonathan said. "Full bottle. Didn't throw up. I fell asleep right after." He gestured to Molly. "She did it, the cleaning woman. In 15 minutes. Dr. Wells moved quickly to Molly's side, pulling out her stethoscope. "May I examine him?" Molly nodded. The doctor worked efficiently, checking Oliver's heart, lungs, color, breathing. With each check, her expression grew more amazed. "His oxygen saturation is 96%. This morning it was 87. His respiratory rate is normal. His color is excellent." She sat back, shaking her head. "He looks like a completely different baby. So he's going to be okay?" Jonathan leaned forward, his whole body tense. Dr. Wells was quiet for a long moment. "Jonathan, I need to tell you something. We've suspected it for weeks, but couldn't prove it. Oliver doesn't have a medical problem. All his tests come back normal. His digestive system works perfectly. There's no physical reason he shouldn't be able to eat." "Then what's wrong with him?" Jonathan's voice rose. "Why has he been starving himself?" Dr. Wells looked at him steadily. "Because he's grieving. It's called failure to thrive, and in Oliver's case, it's emotional, not physical. He lost his mother, and he's been sensing your emotional absence, so he's been giving up, refusing to eat, essentially willing himself toward death because he doesn't feel safe enough to keep fighting." The words hit Jonathan like physical blows. His face went white, then red, then white again. "You're saying I've been killing my own son? That my grief has been starving him to death?" "You've been trying to save him the only way you knew how," Molly said quietly, "with experts and money and the best care." Jonathan turned to her, his eyes wet. "But it wasn't enough, because I was too afraid to love him. Too terrified of losing him to let myself get close. So I hired people to do it for me. To care, to attach, to risk their hearts." His voice cracked. "And he's been dying because of it." Dr. Wells stepped closer. "Every nanny you hired was professional and competent, but they were also emotionally detached. That's what made them professionals. They could do the job without getting personally invested. But Oliver didn't need professional care. He needed something real." She looked at Molly. "I don't know why you picked him up tonight, but whatever you brought into this room, whatever emotion you were carrying, Oliver responded to it. You weren't being professional. You were being genuine. And that's what saved him." "She lost her daughter," Jonathan said quietly. 2 months ago." Understanding dawned on Dr. Wells's face. "Then you weren't just holding him as a job. You were holding him as a mother who understands loss. You were completely present with your own grief. And somehow that made Oliver feel safe enough to accept care." Molly looked down at Oliver. At this baby, who wasn't hers, but who'd found his way into the broken places Ava had left behind. "I tried not to care. I was trying so hard to stay away. But when I heard him, when I saw him giving up, I couldn't let it happen again." Jonathan stood suddenly, came to kneel beside Molly's chair. His eyes were red, his face streaked with tears, but his voice was steady when he spoke. "I need your help. I know you're not a nanny. I know this isn't what you were hired for. But my son just ate for you when he's refused everyone else for 4 months." He swallowed hard. "I'm asking you to stay. Not as cleaning staff. As Oliver's caregiver. Help me save my son's life." Molly's heart started racing. "Mr. Reed, I can't. I'm not qualified. What if I fail him? What if something happens and I lose him too?" Her voice broke. "I don't know if I can survive that again." "Then we'll be terrified together," Jonathan said. "We'll both risk our hearts and pray it's enough. Because the alternative is watching him die while we're too scared to try." He paused. "Name your price, whatever you need." Just please don't leave him. It's not about money. Molly looked at Oliver sleeping peacefully in her arms. It's about what happens if I love him and then lose him. I buried my daughter 2 months ago. I don't know if I can do that again. Neither do I, Jonathan admitted. I don't know if I can survive losing another person I love. That's why I've been keeping my distance, hiring professionals, trying to save him without actually being his father. His voice cracked, but that's been killing him anyway. So maybe the only choice is to risk everything or lose everything. Doctor, Wells gathered her things. What you did tonight was extraordinary, Molly, but this is just the beginning. Oliver's going to need consistent emotional care, real connection, day after day. It's going to break your heart open over and over. Molly looked at Oliver one more time, at his tiny hand that had somehow curled around her finger, at his peaceful face, at the proof that love could save lives when nothing else could. I'll stay, she whispered, but only if you promise something. She looked at Jonathan. You have to be here too. Really here. Not just paying people to care. Actually being his father. Because he needs you even more than he needs me. Jonathan's face crumpled. He nodded, unable to speak. For a moment, they sat in silence. Two broken people who just agreed to risk everything on a baby who might not survive. Mrs. Morgan reappeared in the doorway, her face tight with disapproval. Mr. Reed, surely there are more qualified candidates. This woman has no credentials, no references, no training. Mrs. Morgan. Jonathan stood, his voice quiet but absolutely firm. Molly Sanders is staying. Clear out the guest suite next to the nursery. She starts tonight. And that's final. Mrs. Morgan's expression showed exactly what she thought of this decision, but she knew better than to argue with that tone. As you wish, sir, she said coldly, and disappeared. Dr. Wells paused at the door. I'll be back tomorrow to check on him. But Molly, you should know something. What you did tonight proves that sometimes the best medicine isn't what money can buy. It's what the heart is brave enough to give. After she left, Jonathan sat back down beside Molly. They stayed like that for a long time, watching Oliver sleep, neither of them speaking. Two strangers bound together by grief and a sleeping baby and a decision that would change all of their lives. Thank you, Jonathan finally said, for breaking the rules, for risking your job, for caring when you had every reason not to. If you've ever had to choose between following the rules and following your heart, drop a comment below. And if you want to know whether Molly can actually save this baby or if the past will destroy them both, subscribe now. Because what happens next will test everyone's courage in ways they never imagined. Morning light filtered through the nursery windows. Molly hadn't slept, too afraid that if she put Oliver down, the magic would break. Jonathan appeared at 6 a.m., looking exhausted but different somehow. Softer. How is he? His voice was barely a whisper. He's been sleeping peacefully. His breathing's been steady all night. Jonathan stepped closer, staring at his son with an expression that made Molly's throat tighten. Can I hold him? I know that sounds stupid. He's my son. But I feel like I need permission, like I haven't earned the right. Molly stood carefully, transferring Oliver into his father's arms. The baby stirred, eyes fluttering open. He looked at Jonathan with curiosity mixed with caution, like he was trying to decide if this man was safe. Hey, buddy, Jonathan whispered, his voice breaking. It's Dad. I'm sorry I've been gone. I'm sorry I was too scared to love you. He sat in the rocking chair, Oliver cradled against his chest. Your mom would have been so good at this. She would have known exactly what to say, what to do. And I've been so terrified of losing you that I forgot you needed me to show up anyway. Oliver made a small sound. His tiny hand reached up, touched Jonathan's face. And Jonathan broke. He cried the way Molly had cried that first night, months of grief pouring out while he held his son for the first time since the day Lily died. Over the next 3 weeks, everything changed. Jonathan started working from home, conducting meetings with Oliver, sleeping in a carrier against his chest. He learned to change diapers, give baths, and read baby cues. Molly taught him everything, patient and gentle, watching this broken man slowly become a father. Oliver thrived. He gained weight. His laugh filled the mansion. The monitors came down. The medical equipment disappeared. Dr. Wells declared him completely healthy, calling it the most remarkable recovery she'd ever witnessed. But the real miracle was watching Jonathan transform from a man hiding behind money into a father who showed up imperfectly, vulnerably, completely. 6 months later, the mansion felt completely different. Warm, alive, full of laughter instead of silence. Oliver was a year old now, crawling everywhere, babbling constantly, thriving in ways no one had thought possible. Molly stood in the kitchen one morning, making breakfast while Oliver played on the floor nearby. She'd moved into the guest house months ago, no longer staff but family. The lines had blurred in ways she'd never expected. Jonathan walked in, Oliver immediately crawling toward him with excited squeals. "Dada! Dada!" He'd started talking early, as if making up for lost time. "There's my boy." Jonathan scooped him up, then looked at Molly. "I have something to show you both." He led them to his office, where architectural plans covered his desk. "Remember when I said I wanted to do something meaningful with what we learned?" He spread out the drawings. The Lily Reed Memorial Foundation, a center for infants with failure to thrive, will train caregivers in emotional connection, not just medical protocols. Teach parents that presence matters more than perfection. Molly stared at the plans, tears filling her eyes. "It's beautiful. And I want you to run it," Jonathan said. "Director of Caregiver Training. You'll teach others what you taught me. That love is medicine. That showing up broken is better than not showing up at all." "Jonathan, I don't have credentials. You have something better. You have lived experience. You have a heart brave enough to love when you have every reason not to." He paused. "You saved my son. Now help me save others." Molly looked at Oliver, giggling in his father's arms. Thought about Ava, who would always be part of her story. Realized that helping others didn't erase her grief, but it honored it, turned her pain into purpose. "Yes," she whispered. "I'll do it." That afternoon, they visited Ava's grave together. Molly knelt, placing fresh flowers. "I'm okay now, baby girl. I'm learning to live again, and I promise I'll never forget you. Every child I help will carry a piece of you with them." Jonathan stood beside her, holding Oliver. "Thank you, Ava," he said quietly. "Your mama's love saved my son. Saved me too." As they walked back to the car, Oliver reached for Molly. "Mama," he said clearly. Molly froze, looked at Jonathan, uncertain. He smiled gently. "Lily will always be his mother. But you've been here every day, loving him, showing up when it was hard. If he wants to call you mama too, that's okay. Love doesn't divide, it multiplies." Molly held Oliver close, tears streaming down her face. Happy tears this time. Healing tears. 3 months later, the foundation opened. The ribbon-cutting ceremony drew media from everywhere. But Molly barely noticed the cameras. She was watching a young mother hold her failure to thrive baby, using the techniques Molly had taught her. Skin to skin, real emotion, genuine presence. The baby ate. The mother cried, and Molly knew this was her purpose. That evening, back at the Reed house, they celebrated. Just the three of them, eating dinner in the kitchen like a family. Oliver smeared food everywhere, Jonathan laughed, and Molly felt something she hadn't felt since before Ava died. Peace. "Thank you," Jonathan said as they cleaned up, "for breaking the rules, for being brave when I was a coward, for teaching me that loving imperfectly is better than not loving at all." "Thank you," Molly replied, "for letting me heal by helping someone else, for showing me that grief doesn't have to be the end of the story." They stood in the warm kitchen, Oliver playing at their feet, and Molly realized something profound. She hadn't replaced Ava, she'd honored her. Every baby she helped was a tribute to the daughter she'd lost. Every parent she taught was carrying Ava's legacy forward. Loss had nearly destroyed her, but love had rebuilt her into something stronger. Dear viewers, sometimes the people who save us are the ones who understand what it means to lose everything. Molly didn't just feed a baby that night. She taught a father to live again, and she learned to live again herself, because that's what love does. It heals the giver and the receiver. It turns grief into grace. It proves that showing up broken is better than not showing up at all. The Reed Mansion isn't silent anymore. It's filled with laughter, with hope, with proof that sometimes the greatest wealth isn't what money can buy, but what a brave heart is willing to risk. And the Lily Reed Memorial Foundation, it's helping hundreds of families now, teaching them what Molly learned that desperate night, that babies don't need perfection, they need presence. They don't need credentials, they need connection. And sometimes the most powerful medicine in the world is simply showing up and loving someone when you have every reason not to. If this story touched your heart, if you've ever had to choose between safety and courage, or if you know someone who needs to hear that broken people can still save lives, leave a comment below telling us where you're watching from. And subscribe to this channel, because stories like this remind us all that love is always worth the risk.